viewers in Indonesia and Singapore, Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Lantai Wijaya, and this is Market Headlines. And yes, viewers, the government ensures that the sovereign wealth fund's governance is a major factor that must be considered to avoid potential losses in SWF investments. And the finance minister emphasized that the government is still looking for the right business governance model for SWF.
The investment management institution or sovereign wealth fund that is being built by the government is expected to have better governance than other government agencies. Minister of Finance Sri Mulyani Indrawati said that the government is still thinking about the right framework for SWF so that it doesn't have a high risk of loss in the future. In addition to alluding to the quality of human resources, the Minister of Finance ensures that SWF has a good business model. Sri Mulyani said that the risk of funding, such as what happened to Indonesian export financing institutions due to high NPL, must still be avoided, so that the funding carried out by SWF must be of good quality and governance oriented towards the mandate of law.
Mengenai LPEI yang memang saat ini ada memiliki NPL yang cukup tinggi, memang saya lihat stock taking kelemahannya ada di mana. Sekali lagi, ya, persoalannya waktu itu SDM, yaitu kualifikasi dari eksekutifnya, dan juga dari sisi tata kelola yang terus terang sebagai lembaga sui generis memang perlu memiliki perhatian yang ekstra. LPI ini juga adalah sui generis. Oleh karena itu kami juga terus berusaha untuk memenuhi seluruh apa yang disebut tata kelola framework-nya.
The Finance Minister explained gradually this year SWF is targeted to reach up to 75 trillion rupiah of capital from various sources. The government has also explored capital participation in other countries in the SWF funding. From Jakarta, Raharjo Patmo for IDX Channel.
On the other hand, government's action to attract investors through sovereign wealth fund should be done carefully. House of Representatives concerned about the mismatched potential investment project in the long run. As a matter of fact, Indonesian sovereign wealth fund aims to raise $20 billion by offering multiple funds and seeing good deal of value. The authority must have clear framework. In a working meeting with the Ministry of Finance, member of House of Representatives Commission 11, Melkias Marcus Mekang, conveyed his concern over mismatched cost of fund potential from the projects because the possibility of investors asking for a fast return is big, while the sovereign wealth funds projects are mostly long-term projects, so that the government caution in managing investment funds must be considered.
Tidak match-nya antara uang yang ditaruh oleh para investor dari luar negeri terhadap investasi yang jangka panjang ini. Nah ini kira-kira pemerintah sudah
To energy sector, to boost the development of new and renewable energy in Indonesia, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources is currently planning to build a solar park across the eastern region. The concept to build a solar park aligns with the vision to conduct huge-scale solar power plant development over a broad area of land. The proposal was conveyed by the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, Arifin Tasrif, in front of the House of Representatives. The location would be arid and the areas across eastern Indonesia. In a sense, it receives ample of sunlight and low rainfall.
Ya, solar panel nih di India nih cost-nya cuma 2,3 sen per kWh. Kemudian kemarin Portugal juga sudah mendeklar dia juga bisa memproduksi solar panel dengan harga 1,4 sen per kilowatt hour ya, dengan kapasitas 680 megawatt ditambah dengan baterai sebesar 100 megawatt. Nah, ini sedang kita kaji ya, bagaimana tadi kita bisa mentransmit ya dari sumber ke user.
In the other hand, Dadan Kustiana, as Director General of Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation at the Ministry, stated that the government is currently planning a solar park just like in Abu Dhabi of the United Arab Emirates and also Portugal and Arab Saudi. Ministry also announced its target of solar power plant capacity improvement to 17,687 megawatts by 2035. From Jakarta, Muhammad Olga for IDX Channel. Government just issued government retail bond 019 with a 5.57% coupon rate, and the offering period is starting from January 25th to February 19th, 2021. Bonds in the ORI 019 series carry out a fixed coupon rate of 5.57% and have a tenure of 3 years to mature on February 2024. The debt papers were offered online to Indonesian individuals who could invest between 1 million rupiah to 3 billion rupiah each.
Seluruh dana yang diperoleh dari hasil penerbitan ORI 019 akan digunakan untuk pemenuhan target pembiayaan APBN 2021, termasuk pembiayaan untuk upaya penanganan dan pemulihan dampak dari pandemi COVID-19, salah satunya untuk program vaksinasi yang saat ini sedang dicanangkan oleh pemerintah.
Orders can be made through online distribution partners through 4 stages. First, registration. Second, ordering. Third, payment, and the last, settlement or confirmation. Meanwhile, the determinations of sale will take place on February 22nd, 2021. Jakarta, Rajo Pakmu for IDX Channel. Market Dance will be right back after this quick break. Stay tuned.
Kunci dari kesuksesan hulu migas Indonesia ke depan ini apa, Pak?
Fleksibilitas fiskal yang akan dikeluarkan untuk menjaga keekonomian. Investor akan datang itu saja.
Oke, Pak.
Keekonomiannya terjamin.
Ya, Otoritas Jasa Keuangan telah resmi menerbitkan belit yang mengatur modal inti minimum bank. Dengan penerbitan aturan ini,
Bank ini heavily regulated, Pak. Jadi bank itu nggak bisa pindah tangan begitu saja, harus approval oleh OJK.
Menteri Keuangan Sri Mulyani Indrawati mengatakan bahwa industri keuangan syariah tumbuh mengesankan.
Di masa pandemi ini kita masih bisa bertahan dan bahkan menunjukkan kinerja yang sangat baik.
Welcome back to Market Headline. The Indonesia Investment Coordinating Board, or BKPM, recorded investment realizations of 826.3 trillion rupiah throughout 2020. BKPM claimed that the realizations exceeded the target set of 817.2 trillion rupiah.
The Indonesia Investment Coordinating Board, or BKPM, recorded investment realization of 826.3 trillion rupiah throughout 2020. BKPM claimed that the realization exceeded the target set of 817.2 trillion rupiah.
Realisasi investasi kita itu mencapai 826,3 triliun dari target investasi kita 817,2 triliun. Artinya ada kenaikan kurang lebih sekitar 9 triliun ya Tina ya?
Ya, selisihnya dari target
ya, dari target. Jadi ada kenaikan 9 triliun.
Bahlil explained that the initial target for investment realization in 2020 was 886 trillion rupiah. However, the target must be revised to 817.2 trillion rupiah due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In other words, the realization of investment from January to December 2020 was 101.1% of the target and grew by 2.1% year-on-year. Meanwhile, more specifically, the realization in the fourth quarter of 2020 was 214.7 trillion rupiah, 2.7% higher compared to the previous quarter and increased by 3.1% from the same quarter in 2019. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
Yes, viewers, in the component that make up Indonesia's GDP in terms of expenditure, investment is the second largest contributor below the household consumption. So, therefore, an impressive investment realization will certainly support the national economic growth. So, how was the investment realizations the past year in 2020? Let's take the data in the following infographic series. Through your screen, we can see there are two indicators in here, January to December 2019 and January to December 2020. Here it is, we can see the proportions between foreign direct investment and domestic direct investment. In 2019, the FDI was bigger than the DDI. But however, then in the January 2020 up to December 2020, it becomes so balanced between FDI and the DDI. We can see that the FDI proportions is 49.9%, while the DDI is in the level of 50.1%. This is nearly in match, doesn't it? And BKPM stated that prior to the pandemic, the investment realization target was 886 trillion rupiah, but after the pandemic, it was revised to be only 817 trillion rupiah. On this basis, BKPM stated that the investment realizations in 2020 exceeded the target. Then what's interesting is, based on the data, domestic investment dominated by 50.1% of the total realization, or an increase of 7% year-on-year. And from the data, it can be seen that the domestic investment plays an important role in the realizations of the investment in 2020, or in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic, which is even considered capable of being a bulwark for the decline in foreign investment. But however, the decline in foreign direct investment was tolerable, as it was recorded only a 2.4% drop, only 2%, so it's not a big deal. So, or better than the projections of a 30% decline in the global investment interest. So, of the total investment realizations, where are the sectors that are the main target of the investors? Let's check it out through the next graphic. Yes, through your screen, we can see which sectors that is favorable by the investors in 2020. First of all, we can see the transportations, warehouse, and telecommunications that become the leading sector of the favorable ones from the investors by 17.5%. And then moving on to the second leading sector, which is electricity, gas, and water sector, and dominated by 12.3% of the whole investments. And moving on to the third one, by basic metal industry and stuffs, by the contributor by 11.5%. And the fourth one, moving on to housing, industrial, and offices by 9.2%, and constructions by 8.6%, and while others by 40%. And then BKPM revealed that 16 companies relocated their business to Indonesia throughout 2020. And the total investment from the relocations was nearly 7.15 billion US dollar. And apart from these 16 companies, BKPM mentioned that there are still 14 companies that have interest in relocating their business to Indonesia, where the investment value is estimated at 19.68 billion US dollar. And meanwhile, based on the data, the metal industry sector is starting to become a leading sector. The improvement in the base metal industry is believed as a sign of diminishing symptoms of the industrializations in the past few years, which is believed to be in line with downstream policies set by the government. And then let's see which countries that the investment realizations came from in the next graphic. So here it is through your screen. We can see investment realizations based on the country of origin. First things first, we got the leading country for the investment, which is Singapore, by 9.8 billion US dollar in 2020. And then moving on to China with an investment worth 4.8 billion US dollar for a pass through 2020. And moving on to its sister country, Hong Kong, by the investment value of 3.5 billion US dollar throughout 2020. Indonesia, and moving on to Japan by 2.6 billion US dollar, and South Korea by 1.8 billion US dollar, and also others that is contributing around 6.2 billion US dollar. But if we dig deeper, since 2015, Singapore has always dominated the realizations of foreign investment. But it must be admitted that Singapore's investment realizations in 2020 amounted 9.8 billion US dollar, with a percentage of 34.1%, was the biggest achievement compared to the previous years. And in addition, China and Japan are also recorded consistent investment as seen from the investment realizations for the last 5 years. With a good investment achievement throughout 2020, then how was the absorptions of Indonesian workers during the last year? So let's check it through the next graphic. And yes, viewers, through your screen, we can see on how the investment can absorb workforce in Indonesia. First thing first, in the first quarter of 2020, through the data, we can see that there are 303,000 workforce absorptions, while in the second quarter, the number declined to be 263,000 workforce. In the third quarter, it began to rise again by 295,000 Indonesian workers, and also in the fourth quarter of 2020, the number becomes stable in the range of 294,000 workforce. And the positive trend in investment realizations last year is deemed necessary to be accompanied by a precise strategy in restoring the employment. And to do this, the government must choose the right sector that has a multiplier effect and allow the expansion. Deputy Chairpersons of Indonesian Employers Associations, Bob Azam, say that the sectors that have multiplier effect and allow them to expand in the COVID-19 pandemic are manufacturing, agriculture, SMEs, and this is because the three factors are very contributive in the terms of employment, economic growth, and also provisions of a basic necessity for the public consumptions. And meanwhile, this year, BKPM targets the realizations of investment to reach 900 trillion rupiah, with at least 1.3 million jobs being absorbed. And yes, viewers, although uncertainty still looms over the economy, including the terms of investment, it should not be the basis of pessimism, but it must be overcome with optimism and, of course, improvement in all sides to support the investment realizations. Of course, have a positive impact on the absorptions of the domestic workforce. And stay tuned to market headlines. Information about Indonesian capital market will be presented shortly after the break.
Saya Prisa Samodatu membawakan program berita News Screen yang menghadirkan informasi seputar ekonomi maupun juga bisnis dari dalam negeri.
Senang sekali saya David San Oval dan dapat hadir menemani Anda dalam program spesial dialog webinar on TV.
Setiap minggunya kita akan membahas tema-tema yang sangat menarik. Apa kabar ibu-ibu sekalian?
Alhamdulillah baik.
Salah satu ambisi daripada Kementerian Koperasi dan UMKM bersama Spesco adalah koperasi keren, baru, digital gitu kan, yang kita bisa IT.
Ya halo pemirsa, nama saya Mangivera Tjong. Saat ini saya menjabat sebagai presenter dan juga associate producer. Saat ini saya membawakan program IDX Session Closing, di mana di program tersebut saya menganalisa isu-isu ekonomi yang menarik, baik dari luar negeri maupun juga dari dalam negeri. Tentunya hingga saat ini saya masih terus belajar dan saya sangat menikmati profesi tersebut.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. So let's take a look at Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement. So earlier today, JCI was opened at the level of 6,620.8, and then approaching the closing time in the first session, the index was on the level of 6,202.11, and then the index was showing weakening trend by the second session closing time. The index was closed at the level of 6,140.17. In short, JCI went down 1.89%. And next, we're going to see the sectoral movement. Leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got constructions as the leader of the weakening trend that went down 2.9%. Agriculture went down 2.7%. Consumer goods went down 0.83%. And basic industry that went down 0.52%. And moving on to the top gainers and the top losers, here are the key highlights from today's trading sessions. We got BMRI that went up 1.03%. We got TBIG that went up 0.96%. We got PTBA that went up 2.22%. And MDKA that went up 2.89%. And meantime, for the top losers for today's trading, we got ENTM that went down 6.97%. We got BBKP that went down 2.75%. We got BBRI that went down 2.72%. And BRIS that went down 6.79%. And next, we're going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. So rupiah opened at level of 14,086. The rupiah was also showing weakening trend towards US dollar. I was closed at level of 14,055. In summary, rupiah went down 0.2%. Listed company Tower Bersama Infrastructure just issued global bonds of $300 million. The obligations equals to 67.8% of the total company's equity.
Tower Bersama Infrastructure issued $300 million or 4.48 trillion rupiah global bond as company's instrument to get income. After deducting underwriting fees, commissions, and other fees, the amount received by the company only reached 296.4 million. All of them will be used to pay part of outstanding balance of company's 3 revolving loan facilities. There are several corporations that are first buyer of this global bond. For example, they are Barclays Bank in Singapore, BNP Paribas, DBS Bank Ltd and Hong Kong, and Shanghai Banking Corporations Limited in Singapore. This $300 million global bond has a fixed rate of 2.75% per year. It will be paid every 6 months, and the first payment of interest falls on July 20, 2021. From all sources, IDX Channel.
Listed company LinkNet set a 3 trillion capital expenditure for this year. The company will use the capital expenditure to continue the network migration project from PLN power poles.
For a long time, LinkNet has collaborated with National Electricity Company or PLN for network migration project. In fact, 47% from LinkNet's network are still using PLN poles. Throughout 2020, LinkNet has migrated the network across 65,100 poles, and by 2021, LinkNet aims to migrate 200,000 poles, then another 100,000 poles in the January-May 2022. President Director of LinkNet, Marlo Budiman hopes that by May 2020, all of the LinkNet network will belong to the company. According to him, this network migrations is very important to do in order to increase the independence of the LinkNet infrastructure and provide greater certainty for the shareholders. From all sources, IDX Channel.
And yes, viewers, step aside from the market conditions as coronavirus pandemic takes a big role on current economic situation. Here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. The news close on market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic business and capital market channel. I'm Clara Antawijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.
Kementerian Perdagangan mengungkapkan telah menangani sebanyak 37 kasus.
Karena kondisi pandemi COVID-19